What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to talk about high ticket sales objections. This might sound funny coming from me, but in a past life, years ago, not even that long ago actually, I used to do high ticket sales for myself. I used to sell $5, $10, $15, $25,000 program packages. I've done it for other people. I mean, anything from, I'd say $7 all the way up to $50,000 is probably about the max I think I've sold. And these conversations, once you get over $1,000, you know, you kind of have to have a very specific kind of conversation through a very specific channel, right? So a lot of times you see higher priced items not being sold on a sales letter per se, but being sold on a webinar, and then you got an application you got to fill out or some sort of information you got to fill out, and then you get a phone call. And that is what I used to do. Now, I love high ticket sales. And there is something for everyone to learn from this video. So I think you should tune in regardless of what you got going on in life right now. You'll get something out of this. Remember, in every conversation, you're either selling or being sold. It's really that simple. So crafting and polishing your skill set to be able to negotiate and handle, navigate these conversations is a good thing, okay? It took me a really long time to figure this stuff out too, by the way. Let me just go into that real quick before we dive into the three most common objections that you'll get. But this took a lot of time, you guys know my story. In high school, I almost failed high school because of public speaking class because it was such a dominant part of the grade back then. And I could not speak in front of others to save my life. Well, guess what? That carried on throughout life. It didn't just instantly go away. It took a lot to get rid of that. And one of the areas that it would show and rear its nasty head is obviously speaking in front of other people, but just when you're in the spotlight and it's you that's got to be the confident guy right now to convey the message, to rally the troops, to sell some shit, it obviously shows up again. It doesn't just go away. And it's something to where you have to practice this all the time to stay sharp on it. And I didn't for a long time. I wanted to shoot this video probably a year ago. I first had the idea, like, let's start shooting some sales training stuff and let's start, helping these guys out in this area. And I didn't feel confident. And now I'm starting to, have these conversations again. And it's so funny how quick it all comes back. It really is like riding a bike. Because riding a bike is a mental musculature pattern, but it's also a physical body thing too, right? Well, any mental pattern that you put enough time into, when you take time off and then come back, you should start to feel like, oh yeah, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. And it's been so cool to have that happen, because you don't really recognize how good you know something until you take time away from it and then come back and it's like, okay, now we're cooking with grease here. So, with all that being said, sales conversations, I think, are widely misunderstood. This whole market, I could do a whole day seminar just talking about how fucked up the market is with sales trainers and false idling sales trainers. That's why the whole concept of having, idling these guys is stupid. Because look at what just happened with Grant Cardone. Like, don't think I didn't see what just happened with him being on Jordan Belfort's podcast. He did awful. Now, I don't know if that's because Grant's so far removed now from the sales conversation, he's forgotten. And that would be a valid, not excuse, but reason. And I do believe that can happen because I've seen it with myself and I've seen it with other people. Like, you move away from that conversation for too long and you really just suck at it. And his responses and his combating objections and dialoguing that conversation with Jordan was just awful. Now, and even Jordan did an amazing job of being empathetic and kind of giving him opportunities and really reading his body language and just his state of mind at that time. And he knew he wasn't doing good. And he was even trying to kind of save him out of that. And Grant just kept digging himself a bigger hole. I thought that whole thing was really interesting. And it proves two things. One is there is no big badass top of the pile sales guy. Even though men, egos, and everyone wants to be the best, who cares? Like, I don't know. Like, if that's like your end goal, then that's pretty thin. To be like the biggest guy to do it, I don't know. That stuff, maybe that's just me that doesn't really get too excited about that. But that whole market now, it's like another fucking market that we had to take and make micro, and sales trainers for chiropractors and sales trainers for fitness guys. Stop. Okay, stop with all this fucking madness. All we're doing is having a conversation. All of the pre-work to that conversation should have done one thing: pushed away everybody who is not ready and cultivated and brought in the studs, the 1% that are ready to get on the phone. Let's make sure that this is exactly, I got any questions, make sure it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Let's talk details, and then let's hand over $10, $15, $25,000 and fucking go. That's it. That's all that conversation should be. It should be the final step before saying yes. It's not like an exploratory, let's feel each other out, this is the first date. No. If you pre-qualified properly, this is like we're about to have some sex, okay? Like, again, to use that analogy. That's where it should be, like in the cycle of things. So it's really like we're just getting on this call to see how we vibe together, and then we're going to make this decision together to move forward or not. Okay, so much should have happened. And with business, with services, selling services or coaching, doesn't really matter what you're selling. If you set that up properly, then by the time you get on that call, like I said, it should be more of a diagnostic call, where we're just, I'm pre-screening you to make sure that you're a fit for my group, and you're pre-screening me to make sure that, this guy is not full of shit. His YouTube channel, he's not lying. I'm ready to rock and roll with this guy. He's exactly what he claims to be. And that's why, to take a side note, one of my key focuses for at least the last year has been, my YouTube is my resume now. I don't know if you've realized that that's what I was going for, but I want people to look at my YouTube and just be like, that's the pre-qualification. I knew I was going to offer a high-ticket coaching at some point. I fucking knew I was, because I can't stay away from this stuff. This is my passion. I want to help people. So I knew that even though a year ago I was so fed up and so disgusted with marketing and the industry and things like that, I knew I was going to come back to it. So I was like, okay, let's just keep building value, building value, but in my own unique way. There's no defaults with me. What you see in this video is what you get on a phone call with me. It's what you get if we were working together. It's what you get in my Discord. Anyone that knows me, anyone that's in a Discord, which has been thousands of people now, can vouch that there is no on-off switch. There is no difference. I might not be as enthusiastic as I am in this video, depending on the time of day you talk to me, but overall, this is me. And that's one of the beautiful things about just shedding the bullshit and shedding the defaults. People know what they're getting. Now, could you imagine if I came out and tried to present myself in a certain way and this and that, but then when you got me and you came to my house or something and hung out with me or went and got a coffee with me, I was like, different. That would be really disappointing, wouldn't it? But also, too, I would be a fraud on a couple different levels, because one, I almost feel like if I was charging or doing some sort of service with this face you get, but then I give you a different face, I don't know, I just feel like that would be fraudulent, but it actually might be fraudulent from a law standpoint. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't talk in detail about that, but that's one of the beautiful things about stripping away the bullshit is, so the YouTube for me acts as a resume. So think of all the pre-qualification that's happening before somebody comes to me to even talk or think about having a conversation of working together. Plus, too, I'm going to start releasing digital products and programs that I will require people to go through before we even have a conversation. So they'll have to be skin in the game. There'll have to be all this research that they've done. So the analysis paralysis stage is handled for me now. And I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that at all. Okay, so you have to think about, how do you really pre-qualify people? The issue with sales is that I think people get a little too excited about the fact that, oh my God, I can charge like $5,000? I can charge like $10,000 for this mastermind? Well, guess what, champ? If it sucks or if it's bullshit, people are going to figure that out pretty quick. Also, too, it's going to be really hard selling that phone call. Now, understand, I've sold for other people where I didn't really have a clue as to what they offered, and I've sold for myself. And it's a lot harder to sell for other people, yeah, but okay. So in one of the instances, I didn't really know what they were offering, and it turned out that it was crap. So that's a really hard sell, because there will be if you get them all hooked up on emotions and all hopped up on, emotionally feeling good, which I feel a lot of people do, then there will be what? Buyer's remorse, and they will refund. Chances are they will be a coward and they will do a chargeback, and they won't even call you and tell you that they're going to do it. They'll just do it, okay? And that sucks, because then you're putting payment processing at risk. You're putting, your Stripe accounts, your authorized.net accounts at risk, or World Bank, whatever you're using. You're putting all those accounts at risk, and they're going to flag your profile. And that is way more important now than it used to be. Like back in the day, didn't really matter. It was expected that there was X amount of refund rate here and refund percentage here. Some of it got pretty high. Some of it got into the 30-40%. But now it's more important now, more than ever, right? So I think that's enough pre-crap. Let's now talk about the goods, and hopefully I won't be on this all day. We're going to start with the easiest, going into the hardest, okay? I want to think about it is probably the easiest objection you'll ever get. Pause, side note. Objections are questions in disguise. In your sales call with them, I think that the best way to do it is if you offer some sort of like marketing service, or you'll get more traffic, or you'll help them make more money, like that kind of business coaching aspect, right? Then you need to show that. You need to demonstrate that in the first half of the call. I think that is a slam dunk way. That is the way that I was taught, and that is the way that I know of people that made $30 to $100 million doing that same exact practice. Now, there used to be groups, a couple small groups that would teach this, and you'd show up with all your leads and for 2 days straight just make nonstop sales calls using their sales script. That's how I learned. Now, this was already after I'd done 2 years of door-to-door sales, selling fucking office supplies and phone service, which nobody needs. And, I went to this, and I did that, I think 2 or 3 times. So, anyways, that's my credentials, by the way, in case you were still wondering, does this guy know what the fuck he's talking about? I think so, yeah. All right, so in the first half of the call should be diagnostic, and you should be displaying what you can do, showing them the goods. So if there's some way that you can help them make more money, what's the easiest way to do that? The easiest way to do that would be, okay, let's look in your network right now, and let's see, are you clear on your offer? Are you clear on what you want to do? Whether it's a brand new offer or something that's seasoned or conditioned, chances are they haven't really tapped their network the way that they could be. So why don't we talk about some different strategy there? That could be anything from making really long styled Facebook posts that used to work back in the day. I was in the very beginning of that, remember? Well, you don't remember, but I'm sure you've seen those posts now. I got to see that start. I knew the guy who started that whole idea of making a really long Facebook ad post that would tell this whole long story and give them tips in the ad post. They click through to a webinar that's either automated or live, or they click through to a strategy session forum. We're on the call and we're selling them some expensive shit. Okay, so that's just one way of doing it. So we could walk through how we could frame that up. Maybe we could clarify their unique selling proposition or the offer itself. That is all the diagnostic shit, to where in the first half I get them to see how much money is sitting on the table right now. You can imagine where this leads to next, right? The close becomes infinitely easier because I've already showed them how much they're missing. So the close is re-looping through and using my bullets. I call it that. But you want to build up all these bullets throughout the sales conversation. These pain points, like maybe it's that, nobody went to college in their family and now they're the first entrepreneur that could make $1 million, and maybe they already have made $1 million. Whatever their bullets are, keep those in your gun. Don't blow your load too quick. Don't fire these off too quick. There's a proper time and place for each one of them. And where I use most of those is I use them and I fire those off when I'm recycling through the close. Because the close is where everyone is terrified, right? And that's the time that I think is the best. Because if you've done everything, well, it's like an evaluation. Based on how you've done the first half of the call, it'll dictate what objection you get. You are not getting off that phone call without an objection. Just get that through your head. And if you're so terrified to have these awkward, uncomfortable calls, you should not be doing sales. They are not uncomfortable. Maybe they are in the beginning, but it doesn't matter. Here's the approach I always took. If I knew that the service or the thing I was selling was in their best interest, I would not get off the fucking phone until they said yes, if they clearly stated they were ready to make this change. Now, one could argue that the fact that they're even on the call with me after how much pre-screening we'd already do proved that they were ready. So what are we going to do here? Why am I hanging up right now? So that I can make this easy on you and make this easy on me? We can just hang up the call and be a couple of cowards and think, oh, well, that was fun. Next. Or can I make this really uncomfortable for you right now and push you into what you already know you want to do? You see, none of that is Jedi. None of that is, I don't know, like, people are looking for like this magic sauce in a sales conversation, especially in sales. Oh my God, there's how many sales courses now, right? I think that proves my point. But you don't need that. Because earlier in the conversation, you really explored why they're doing this, what they want, what their end goal is. And now here we are at the end. I want to think about it as one, you screwed up. If you got, I want to think about it. And I used to have reasons for this, and I'm gonna tell you I'm rusty at the moment, so I don't remember. But I want to think about it leads back to something specifically you failed to do in the beginning. Same thing with I don't have the money. Well, that should have been done in pre-qualification. I want to talk to my spouse about it, right? These are all reasons that root back to something you missed, some area. If I think about it, I'll flash it on the screen, or maybe I'll dig up in some of my old notes, but it doesn't matter, okay? Me, right now in this conversation, I guarantee you is better than probably 90% of sales people and sales trainers out there. That is pathetic, okay? And I'm still rusty right now. Imagine how good I'll be when I'm actually on top of my game, but you be the judge. So I want to think about it. You haven't pushed them over the edge. You got to strong arm them. And what I mean by strong arm them is, okay, there's two sorts of reality. And one is a reality where we all play pretend. And you come with your lies, and you come to a sales conversation with your excuses. And I buy them, and I believe them, and I let you go, and I let you slide. And then there's the real world. God, life itself, does not let you slide. Does not just accept excuses. The bank doesn't accept excuses for your loans or your credit card payments, so why the fuck would I do it? I'm going to hold you to the same level of what? Accountability and standard. So, I want to think about it is they're just not ready yet. And you haven't, that should be an easy one. That should be an easy one to push them over the edge and get them into whatever it is that you're selling. Because they've been thinking about it. Like you've gone through all my material now. You went through the webinar. You read the sales letter. You filled out the application. You know, here we are. They're like, you've been doing this. And so the thing I would go to here is I would say, okay, great. How long would you say, and this is what I would explore, this thread. How long would you say you've been thinking about this? Because they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about the change. They're thinking about the end goal. So in the beginning, we should have found this out. But in the end, if we haven't figured it out, it's time to ask. And in the end, if we have already gotten that piece, John, you've been thinking about this for a year now. How much time have you lost? Now, off of what we just went through earlier in the call, like just from tapping into your warm network in the next 30 days, that could be another $10,000. So you might have lost $120,000 by waiting for an entire year. What would that $120,000 have done for your bottom line? What would that have done for XYZ goal you had? You want to take this vacation? Well, you could have already done it. You wanted to expand and scale? You could have already done it. And I would keep re-looping back to that pain point. And your job here and the thing you're going after is to prove yourself. That's what a great coach does. A great coach won't let you off the hook. Your high school basketball coach, if they were worth their, what's that? Worth their grain of salt? I don't know, whatever. Worth their wages, would have never let you off the hook for a bad performance game. And they would have never let you off the hook for a bad practice or for any bullshit you tried to pass off. Same thing here. So our whole goal is to show them what they already know but are unwilling to face. That is our job here in the closing section, in the objection section of any sale. And can you see how the whole thing, it should be just this kind of organic process. I don't have the money. You should have pre-screened that one already. That should have been pre-screened through the webinar, through the sales page. An easy way to do this is to just, one of the tricks that we used to use is to just say, this is very expensive. Well, what does very expensive mean? It doesn't mean shit. And it's all relative to you and what you think is expensive, and me and what I feel is expensive. For me, it might be $1. For you, it might be $2, right? So it shouldn't be, I don't have the money. It should be, I need to move around the money, right? That should be more like it. I need to get this $10,000 together. And if it is that they don't have the money and they really are in that tough of a spot and they're kind of down and out and they're calling you because that's like you're like their lifeline, then we need to really the beginning of the phone call, when we kind of explored all the missing money, we can go back to that, and we should set a deadline with them and a timeline. And I think this is a great way to end. And this again proves your worth. Okay, so it's like, okay, well, I showed you how you could make $10,000 by doing X, Y, and Z. So how about we do this? You go do X, Y, Z. You know what to do, and let's give it a 1 week deadline. So in 1 week, you go and do X, Y, Z, and fundraise the money, and then we're going to get on the call next Friday, and we're going to, we're going to go ahead and get started. But on Monday, I'm going to follow up with you. On Wednesday, I'm going to follow up with you, and on Friday, I'm going to be expecting that credit card. There you go. That's a way that you could close that if it was at that point. All right. I did make myself some notes, which I'm looking off to right now. One way that I would handle objections is, I don't know if this was actually successful. I never was able to measure this, but I did it. Okay, is when they hit you with that objection, because it's so funny when the objections come. It's so funny because you get to the end, and then you start to loop through your close, and then you start, obviously you're going to get them, and depending on how good of a job you've done, they'll be really, really hesitant to hit you with the objection. They'll be really, really hesitant to hit you with the objection. And so a lot of times, and you can try this if you want to, is when they hit you with the objection, hey, that's a great question. Or another way to do it would be to repeat it back to them. So you do want to make sure you understand them clearly. And I like to use this throughout the sales conversation, is to re-loop the question back to them. John, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You're saying that right now you don't want to get started because X, Y, Z. Make them say it back to you, right? Before you tackle that again. And we can do another video. I want to do another video about how to actually handle, like go through a close and then re-loop through objection handling back to the close over and over and over again, okay? And I got to go through some of my notes, that's why. But okay, the scariest one, I think, by far, and the one that I was always terrified of personally, is I want to talk to my spouse, my significant other. So at this point, you probably should have already asked who's involved in the business earlier in the conversation and who's involved in the decision-making process. A great way to do this is to just start. So what was my opening? Let's see. I'm going to really put myself on the spot here. I think it was something like, hey, John, here's how this is going to flow. Here's how this conversation is going to flow. I'm going to talk about what we got going on over here and explain to you what we're doing, what we're up to. And then, if you've got any questions, I'll open up to you. We can go through any questions that you might have. And then from there, we're going to decide if we're going to move forward or not working together. Is that fair? And I would right out of the gates tell them, it was something like that. I think that we're going to decide if we're going to work together. I think I worded that differently. But right out of the gates, I would tell them, here's what the deal is I'm going to tell you what we got going on over here. You're going to ask your questions. And if we mutually decide that, it's a good decision, we're going to go ahead and move forward today. And that was it. And nobody really objected that. Hey, that was fair. And that's why I use that wording. Does that sound fair? Because nobody likes to be unfair. And this is a psychological, trick. But also, too, your pre-qualification. I'm not just grabbing people off the street. So, that's completely okay to do that. Because if they already know your character, they should expect something like that. Like with me, for example, you would never expect me to get on a sales call and not, if I didn't feel like it was a good fit, I would pressure you. I would say, let's go. Because what are we doing here? You've been following me. You've gone through all my content. You know how I am. What the fuck? Like, what are you wasting my time? So people would already expect that with me. But that's because I've already set that stage. I've already, kind of set the precedent of how I am. But the talking with the spouse is by far one of the scariest things. And in the beginning, one of the things I like to do is, okay, so, do we have everybody on the call that, makes decisions on the business, makes decisions on your life? And then if they answer yes, then I can use that at the end. Well, yeah, I should probably talk to my wife about it. Okay, well, in the beginning, you said that everyone was on the call, which is why I like to have everyone on the call because, I completely understand, for the most part, I think most men do involve their wives in some aspect in their life and in their business. That's okay, but let's get them on the call. So I would point back to that and I'd say, okay, well, let's take a step back. Have you guys talked about this? Actually, let me start over. Does she know you're on the call with me today? Yes or no? And, if yes, then great. So what kind of conversation did you guys have about this? And what are your, I know your goals, but what are her goals for you with this? Did you guys talk about that? Did you guys talk in depth? No? Okay, well, I think we should bring her on the call. So the route A you could go is basically essentially let's get her on the call. And there's a great way to do this, which is like what I just outlined, and there's a really bad way to do this. I've heard like if you try to speed through your script and you don't, again, it's because you're trying to get through a sale, you're not trying to connect with a person or really come to a conclusion with that person, you're trying to sell shit, you'll speed through this part. And if you come off like, great, let's get him on a call. Like, no, that's not going to work. And I think people now, like a couple years ago, that probably did still work. And that's how I was originally taught to do it, was just kind of like in this uppity kind of voice, like not so confrontational, but more like uppity, like, yeah, let's get him on a call. No. I don't think a lot of people would go for that in 2019. But what I do think they would go for is the softer approach that I just kind of like buffered into that. And then, okay, so have you guys talked about this? What's important for her? What's important for you? And then here's the reason why you can't let him go and do this by himself if it's a guy, is because he'll not be able to explain it the way I explained it to you, right? So the guy I'm on a sales call with, I know their life because I've pre-qualified them and I know all their problems already by the time we get on a call. I know everything they're up against. I know all the bullshit patterns and defaults that are going through their brain. I know how to explain that. He doesn't because he's going through it. So how the fuck is he going to go and explain it to his wife? He's not. So it really would be beneficial for me to talk to both of them at the same time. And that should, again, like that shouldn't be scary for you because if it's going to be a joint decision, then it's a joint decision. And she's obviously got her goals. She wants the old guy back. She wants the guy, maybe she wants the guy that's got his fucking balls. She wants to get that guy back. Maybe she misses that. Maybe he's gotten soft. Maybe he's gotten fat and out of shape. He started running a business and making a bunch of money and he forgot about his health. I did that kind of coaching for a while. Guys who lost their health and need to get their bodies back. And that was a pretty common conversation we had. All right. But what's great about this objection is that with me now and how I am is because I feel like there's like this whole forgotten aspect of masculinity in society. Damn well I'm going to call you out if you pull that shit on me. If you pull that I need to talk to my wife about it. Well, this is probably exactly why you need the coaching, is because you've lost your balls and you've lost your ability to make decisions. Understand that there was a point in time in tribes when the man would go out and he would bring home the bacon, would he not? He would bring home the fucking food and the wife would be at home waiting with the kids and getting everything prepared. So you want to bring home the bacon. That's your job as a man, is to hunt and bring that home. So, there is a angle of this that is that it really isn't up to her. It's up to you. Because you're like, if the women want to look at the men as the breadwinner of the house, then you got to play the rules of the game. And the rules of the game is that then the man gets to make decisions with the money, with or without you. Now, if that's not the rule in your household, then that needs to be clearly talked about. And I would have probably fished that out earlier in the conversation, because that's how it goes. It's either the woman's putting all the trust into the guy to make the money and bring home the bacon, and he kind of gets authoritative rule over that. And so it's not a big deal to close this coaching program right here on the phone, and then some aren't, and you're gonna have to figure that out, right? And I don't see a problem with either way, because either way, if they're a right fit for the program, the fucking job's getting done and they're signing up, because I really don't see why else we're on the phone, right? Let's see what else I've got written here, because this actually came to me again out of the blue the other day, and I said, okay, enough is enough. We're gonna fucking shoot this video. All right. Yep. Okay. I think that was it. Oh yeah, you can set a deadline here too, just like you did with the money objection. Is set a deadline. So it's like if they've said no to patching her in, bringing her on the call. No to setting up another call with the three of us, and we're going to cut through a lot of the shit and dive right back in. So my summary on that call, by the way, would be, hey, here's what John and I talked about. And we talked about all, like, if it's a money thing and business, we talked about all the money sitting there. Oh yeah, I could see that. Oh yeah, why didn't you talk to Uncle Robbie about it? And da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And oh yeah, why haven't you done a digital product? Right? And then I'm kind of just getting her to yes man me into now let's quickly, within 15 minutes, get to that close. Whereas with John, it took maybe 30, 45 minutes till I got to the close. So we can cut that time in about half, because the most important thing we want to get to is, okay, so what's important for you? You're making decisions on this. And, you know, a lot of times they're not really making decisions, but the husband said that because you're making him uncomfortable. You're pushing him up against the wall to make a decision. And then he's like, holy shit, it's 10 grand. Oh my God, I'm gonna have a fucking heart attack. Well, how much money have you been losing and lost fucking around and not doing this? It's a little bit different with the life coaching angle. I had that thread in my mind a couple minutes ago, but I lost it, so I'll probably not go into that. And we're already 30 minutes in. Maybe I can save that for another call when it's fresh in my mind. But with like a life coaching angle and, hey, we're going to talk about how to better yourself, there is still a way to find the missing money. So in that consultative first half of the call, we're finding the missing money. And in fact, I think that's what we used to call it, finding the missing money. Yeah, something like that. And you can do that with the whole, hey, better your life kind of thing, is because there's something usually that they're hiding from. And there's all these opportunities that they're not seeing, that are passing them by, that they are not jumping on. How much money is that? And you can set, proxy numbers on this, or if you know what it is, or you guys can get down to into a real number, you can totally assign a real number to this. And a lot of times, doorbell, good job. A lot of times, if this is the first time they're looking at that, then it'll be quite revealing, and it'll move them into some action, okay? So here's what I'd like to do and end this. If you have objections that you think are just super tough, or I didn't cover, because everything stems from this, which is you didn't answer a question, and so I'm putting it back to you and trying to worm my way out of this. If there's an objection you think I didn't cover, or that you think is a ball buster, then maybe there's some new stuff I don't know about in 2019. Comment below, let me know. And then, comment below with what you think of this. Maybe something shifted for you. Maybe this will help you in some sort of way. I need to know about it down below, because, I'm fishing in some of these videos. I don't know if you want this kind of shit or not. But if you do, you got to let me know. And then thumbs up or thumbs down, depending on if you liked it or not. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, so that way you know first thing when these videos come out. Because here's the deal. This video might just be the thing that changes the whole game for you today. You might be in sales. You might need what I just gave you, and this might change everything for you. How cool is that? A free fucking YouTube video might completely change the game for you. That's why you want to be subscribed, and that's why you want to hit the bell notification. Anyways, that's all I got for you. More videos on the way soon. See ya.